What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're doing another edition of some college football preview. It is Thursday. I think we have a 46 days, if my math is correct, which is probably not, but it's right around there until we kick off the college football 2024 season. So get excited, get fired up. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button. Helps a ton, as everybody always says. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Again, helps a ton. Really appreciate it. So today, going to go through here just some teams previews a little bit, just like big picture, and then we'll start getting a little bit more in the weeds, a little bit more specific on conference previews, team previews, who I like, who I don't like, but I'm going to give kind of a high level here of few things. College football teams with the most returning starters in 2024. I'm going to go through what coming into the season is like a recap form from recruiting rankings, portal rankings. I'm going to talk about upcoming strength of schedule, hardest teams that are facing the hardest schedules, teams that are facing the easiest schedules, according to College Football Network. And then at the end, I will hit on 3 futures bets that I will be dropping this weekend as I'll be attending the Celebrity Golf Tournament in Lake Tahoe. So good old California doesn't let you bet, allegedly. So I'll be dropping those this weekend. So I'll tune you in and loop you in on that. So kind of hitting on it. A few of the teams, according to 24/7, which is obviously one of the most popular college sites out there. I'm sure most of you have visited that site previously, if not every day, because some of you are maniacs. But here's a few college football teams and how they grade out the most returning starters, or in their case, most returning production from last year. So what they do is they look at basically the returning starters, offense, defense, special teams, and they kind of gather how many players are coming back from the starting units. Obviously, a lot can change with the portal, and guys are transferring in, freshmen, things like that could possibly steal some jobs. But it's kind of a high level, good picture to kind of say, okay, like how many of these teams are going to be a little bit more veteran-esque versus brand new. So the team that has the most returning most returning starters from last year, Virginia Tech at 22. Man, I really want to be bullish on Virginia Tech. The ACC, as we all know, is down a little bit. As expansion continues, they've added 2 teams, Cal and Stanford. Whoopity-doo. So I don't really know kind of what's to expect out of the ACC. Obviously, we've got kind of the top end teams. We've got Florida State, we've got Clemson, we've got Miami up there. But watch out for Virginia Tech. 22 returning starters between offense, defense, and special teams. Kylan Drones at quarterback. I think Virginia Tech is poised to make some noise here and kind of bring back Enter Sandman in a big way. Moving on down here, we've got Oklahoma State at 21. Pokes making a lot of noise in the news recently with Gundy and Ollie Gordon getting a little bit of trouble out there in Stillwater. But 21 returning starters. Oklahoma State is set up to have a pretty veteran squad. I think I heard somewhere, maybe it was Mr. Pate's podcast, that they've got all 5 offensive linemen returning that are redshirt seniors. So very veteran group there. Then we go down tied at 19. We've got Iowa, Iowa State, and Nebraska. Now, you might be saying to yourself, okay, the Fighting Brock Purdy's Iowa State, 19 starters returning. That's pretty good. Nebraska, 19 starters returning. That's pretty awesome. Obviously, they're trying to get things going down there with Matt Rule. Iowa, you kind of want, let's say, like, hey, if all 11 starters on defense returned and like no starters on offense, that would be awesome. That's not the case, unfortunately. Iowa will be returning some offensive starters. Yes, that same offense that moved the ball at the pace of a slug last season. But still, 19 returning starters. They're always a tough out. They're going to be competitive as always. Then we go down to Baylor, 18 returning starters. That's an interesting one. I'm very curious to see this Baylor squad. They have definitely, underperformed the last few years as to what people thought this program could rebound to be. So we'll see. Cal comes back with 17 alongside Kentucky, Stanford, Northwestern, and Georgia Tech. And then with 16 returning starters, we've got Auburn, Georgia, Penn State, Pitt, Rutgers, SMU, Utah, and Virginia. So those are the leaders in the clubhouse. I didn't want to go just all the way down to name, all 100, 80 schools or whatever. But that's kind of what we have for returning starters, according to 24/7. Then we go down to 2024 recruiting rankings. Kind of the usual suspects, kind of the teams that you would expect to see. We've got Georgia, we've got Alabama, we've got Oregon, Miami, Ohio State, Texas, LSU, Oklahoma. So looking at that, again, no surprises really, in my opinion, in the recruiting rankings. Those are all the teams that I would expect to see. But what does that mean? Influx of talent, right? Like they are getting a ton of talent there. You pair that with the 2024 transfer portal rankings, which are Ole Miss, Oregon, Alabama, Texas A&M, Florida, Texas, and Florida State. So those schools are the ones that have the most influx of new talent, whether it's through the recruiting side of things, kids out of high school, or the transfer portal. Expect, some big names obviously to be shifting around. But one of the things I really wanted to touch on today was kind of the interesting strength of schedule. According to College Football Network, who does a really good job, here are the 10 teams with the hardest schedule they rank based on last year's production, last year's season, as well as going into this season, what they anticipate teams to have in terms of talent and, what they anticipate for their predictions and, projections to be, I guess. Florida comes out by far with the hardest schedule. If you have not seen Florida's schedule this year, holy crap. If Billy Napier wins like 6 games, I don't know. I know fans are going to freak out, but you just extend the guy. Like, that's insane. Their schedule is unbelievable. Then we go to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's probably not going to have a very good season this year. Really tough schedule. Then we go Houston. Oklahoma, welcome to the SEC. Ranked 4th hardest schedule in the country. Then we go to number 5, the old buzzword that everybody seems to be, I don't know if they're jumping back on or they're a little bit disappointed after last season, but we have Colorado coming in with the 5th hardest schedule projected this season. Alabama, number 6, welcome to the SEC, Kalen DeBoer. Purdue, right after them. USC, welcome to the Big Ten. Vanderbilt and Arizona State. That rounds out your top 10 hardest schedules projected by College Football Network. Let's move on to the easiest schedules. Now, I'm going to throw a little caveat here. This is not the quote-unquote easiest schedules in all of college football, okay? A big reason for that is I can't list everybody. And the way they do the rankings, if I went backwards to forward, don't advise wiping that way. But if you go backwards to forward, look, I can't list Kennesaw State, Air Force, San Jose State, those kinds of schools who obviously play in a weaker division are going to have an easier quote-unquote schedule than Alabama. So I'm going to list some notable teams that I think actually can contend this year who have fairly easy rankings compared to the field. Virginia Tech comes in at the 69th. Nice. Ranked hardest schedule. Virginia Tech has 3 tricky games this year. They've got Rutgers. I know you're going to laugh. Rutgers is tough, man. They play Rutgers on September 21st. Then they go and play Hurricanes, Miami, September 27th, back-to-back. And then they round out towards the end of the year with Clemson. So Virginia Tech has kind of 3 games that are very tricky for them. Other than that, there's a lot of winnable games on that schedule. We talked about the returning production for Virginia Tech. Watch out for the Hokies this year, guys. I'm just saying. Next one up. I'm going to go to 4 teams here back-to-back that I am very bullish on. And it's not just because of the strength of schedule. It's because of what the program's doing, what they did last year, and where I think they're heading. So ranked at number 65th hardest schedule, you've got Missouri. I know a lot of people Missouri just doesn't get talked about. They have a lot of returning production. Brady Cook is back. They've got Luther Burden. They've got Theo Weiss. They've got a ton of talent on that team. Got to do a little work on the defense. I think a little bit in the trenches, but they've got 3 landmines here from Missouri this year, in my opinion. They go at Texas A&M. Then they play at Alabama, 2 really tough games. Then after Alabama, they have a bye, and then they play Oklahoma at home. If they can get, one of those 3 games and they can win out the rest, Missouri's making the playoff, guys. I think it's very possible this year. I think they have that program humming. And I think Missouri is a really good futures bet if you want to bet on them to make the playoff this season. I think it's interesting. No doubt about it. The next one, ranked 60th, easiest schedule or toughest schedule, however you want to say it, is Arizona Wildcats. I know they've got a new coach down there in Tucson, but they've got a few landmines. But the schedule actually breaks really well for Arizona this year. One, they have a really good returning team. We all know some of the skill guys and the quarterback that they've got. But basically their schedule, the trickiest parts of it go like this. They go to Kansas State, then they've got a bye week. Then they go to Utah. That's a really tough 3-week stretch, but you get the bye week in between to kind of break that thing up. So if they can get one of those two, and then later in the year, they go UCF, bye week, Houston. So those are kind of like 2 separate parts of the schedule that I think are really tricky for these guys. If they can go, again, 1-1, or hell, if they can get 3 of those games as wins, man, Arizona is going to surprise some people. Watch out for the Desert Dogs out there, Wildcats. And then another one. I mentioned these guys on the last podcast. Ranked 52nd hardest schedule in the country. It's the Bulls, man. Ranked number 52. They've got 3 big games that they got to get through. These will not be easy. Don't mistake me for what I'm saying here, but I think Tennessee has a shot if they can get if they can get one of these 3. I think you watch out for Tennessee this year in terms of making a run at the playoff. And when I say that, let me just be very clear here. I think there's going to be some 2-loss teams getting into this playoff. No doubt about it, especially if you're talking SEC teams, strength of schedule, all that. They're going to make their case. Man, look at the consolidation of these divisions. I think we're going to see a lot more 1-loss, 2-loss teams getting in. 1, there's 12 teams, but 2, they're all starting to play each other a lot more, especially when you get rid of divisions. I think we're gone from the days where, you just have to 2 teams or 4 teams have to run the table with undefeated or 1 loss. So that's kind of my thought process here. Getting back to it, Tennessee, they go to Oklahoma, then they get Alabama at home, and then they have to go to Georgia. Obviously, not an easy 3 games whatsoever. But if they can get that Oklahoma game, and let's just say you see what happens with Alabama and Georgia, even if they drop those 2, you think about strength of schedule, I think Tennessee's going to have a pretty good argument if they can take care of business in the other weeks to make their run. And then the last one that I'm going to hit on is, obviously, I know everybody's going to laugh about it. I am just a Miami Hurricanes truther here. They have the 50th ranked strength of schedule, I should say, in the country. Obviously, we know about all the hype. We know about all the recruiting, Mario Cristobal, blah, 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 blah. Every single year, I know they drop 1, if not 2 games that you're just like, what happened? What happened there? If they can just eliminate those absolute boneheaded losses and take care of business in these games, Miami's going to have a real shot this year to make a run with Cam Ward at quarterback. Week number 1, they play Florida at Florida in the Swamp. That game's going to be like 9,000 degrees at the field, if you include humidity, no doubt. Then they play Virginia Tech. We talked about at the top. I'm expecting Virginia Tech to play kind of above what everybody else's predictions are. So Florida, Virginia Tech. They also have to play Louisville, who's a very good program, and then Florida State towards the end of the year. So those are 4 landmines for Miami. Not easy whatsoever, but that's the schedule. So you got those, and that's what I'm looking at. So when I'm kind of taking all these into account, obviously these are not going to be the only bets I drop in terms of futures. Hopefully every pod, every show, I can drop a few more for you guys. But here's 3 future bets that I'm dropping this weekend. Oklahoma State over 8.5 wins. Arizona over 7.5 wins. Tennessee over 8.5 wins. I like Oklahoma State, Arizona, Tennessee. When you look at the returning production, you look at their schedule, just go through a game by game. And then I think you just look at the team that they have, the talent that they have. Those teams are going to be very tough to deal with this year. And I think I like all 3 of those to hit their over number. Should be a fun year. So sorry about the little sunrise here, but that's kind of just a quick little hitter. Hopefully, everybody has a great day. Again, I think 46 days out from college football. Don't forget to hit the like. Don't forget to subscribe. And we will have plenty more content coming everybody's way. Until then, take care.